basically started. So now you already hearing about some ideal moves that's going to go on. Of course, the Warriors failed to trade for Paul George. They wasn't able to package Chris Paul and possibly somebody else. And then it looks like Klay Thompson may sign somewhere else because Klay Thompson feels disrespected by the Warriors organization. And I was laughing at Kendrick Perkins. Kendrick Perkins is clearly a Golden State Warriors hater, but it is what it is. But the Warriors have decided to move on from future Hall of Famer Chris Paul. Chris Paul is 39 years old. Of course, he is a veteran. He was once, I guess you could say he was kind of like the shop steward or whatever you want to call it in the Players Union at one time. But nevertheless, the Warriors decided not to pick up the $30 million option that they had to pay Chris Paul in order for him to remain a Golden State Warrior. So they decided to waive him. You got to say, as far as the Warriors being a championship contender, it might be over. It looked like Klay Thompson is ready to go elsewhere. And you have to think, what do the Warriors do now? Do I think they'll fall into obscurity or mediocrity? No, I think the Warriors will still be a solid 45-win team. Even, you still have Stephen Curry on the team. I just think the Warriors, they'll make some key moves before the season starts and probably pick up some people in free agency, and who knows, maybe make some trades before the season starts. But it's interesting that they decided to move on from Chris Paul. But hey, this is free agency, and this is what this is all about. Me, myself, I wasn't too keen on Chris Paul coming near in the first place. I didn't think he was going to add anything to the team. I didn't think he was going to better their chances of winning the championship. I thought by him and Stephen Curry playing alongside each other. And then again, Chris Paul didn't even start a lot of the games. It was just one of them situations where you looked at, didn't make a lot of sense. And, it's this thing that Steve Kerr has on just trying to play a lot of small ball, running these small lineups. That worked a few years ago when they were younger and a little bit quicker. But, this Warrior team has since aged. Klay Thompson isn't what he was, like 8 years ago. More so due to the injury he had. Keep in mind, Klay Thompson was out for almost a year and a half, almost 2 seasons. So it's a miracle that Klay Thompson was able to salvage his career and come back and play on a high level to help the Warriors win their 4th championship. But you just look at the Warriors, it may be over. It may be back to the drawing board. I think at this point, Chris Paul, I think wherever he goes, he has to understand he's not a starter anymore. It is what it is. He's not a starting point guard anymore. He's had a great career. I think he's going to be in the Hall of Fame one day, but I just think at this point, he has to accept the fact that he has to play a supporting role where he's going to have his minutes reduced, all that stuff. And he's going to be a role player instead of being a vocal point of the offense. And he needs to understand that. And I think at this point, that may be the situation with Klay Thompson. Does Klay Thompson, wherever he goes, if he decides to go somewhere else and it's looking like he's going to go somewhere else, does Klay Thompson still feel that he is a serviceable starting 2 or 3? And if he goes somewhere else, will he accept the role if they ask him to, be a role player instead of being what you would call the vocal point of the offense? So you have to wonder that about Klay Thompson. Look, Stephen Curry is Stephen Curry. And it's kind of funny. People jump off and on the Stephen Curry bandwagon about how good he is or how good he isn't. It's just funny to me. I don't see how a 2-time league MVP the only unanimous MVP in history, a 4-time NBA champion, a finals MVP, is somehow questionable about, what he is as a basketball player. I think that's ludicrous. And I know a lot of dudes be making those videos for the sake of having conversation and basically, providing content. But if you say that Stephen Curry is overrated, and he's, you know what I'm saying, and he didn't have a meaningful career or impact on the NBA, you're just fucking lying. It just gotta be said. So that's my interpretation. That's my interpretation on the Warriors. Like I said before, I just got to keep it a buck. And I also meant to say I'm not surprised that they decided to move on from Chris Paul. Mix up of words. I never liked the idea of him coming there, and I spoke on that. And I'm glad that the Warriors decided to move on. I think sometimes when you're an organization like the Warriors, I think sometimes you get set in your ways where you think this team is going to play how they played basically 5, 6, 7 years ago, basically for the remainder of their career. But they've gotten older and you have to make adjustments. And I think the Warriors haven't prepared properly for the future to keep themselves competitive. And that's the problem. So the Warriors got a lot of decisions to make as far as the offseason going into the next season, because they're going to be a totally different roster going into this season, especially if they don't have Klay Thompson or Chris Paul. But there you have it. This is your boy Town. I'm out. Whew.